Good morning. Good morning. It's a story time. So I was going through Facebook here, and I'm going to mention his name because I've watched this guy several times, and it's not Hunter Biden or Michelle Obama. And it's not Red Horse Beer. Who's drinking Red Horse Beer? Oh, I know who that is. All right, so it's Brian Brown. He posted a picture of a track hoe digging in the dirt in the middle of a field, and up comes this hairy mess of wires. And it says, Jason Mendez is the one. Either I caught a troll or I'm deep shit. Well, when I saw that, I thought of something from my past. Yes, my past. So years ago, this is story time, by the way. If you don't like story time, click off now, but I got a lot of them because I'm old. Well, I'm not that old, but I'm old. Am I old, babe? A little bit old, she says. I'm getting there. See, when she met me, this was red, not white. And if it turns blue, then I know I've been with a Smurf. But anyways, my flavor saver. That is so wrong, it's not even funny. It would have to be only one specific Smurf. There must have been a lot of sexual frustration in Smurf Village. Because there was only one female and a shit ton of little male Smurfs. I think Papa Smurf created her somehow Gargamel created her, if I remember correctly. Anyways, this thing has gone off the rails, terribly off the rails. So I'm looking at this post and I'm thinking, back in about 1990, I don't think I was married yet to my first wife, but in about 1990, my dad and my brother-in-law, was he my brother? We were married. I was married. My sister and brother-in-law, they were looking for a business to start, and my dad, he was willing to help anybody and everybody within the family, just like myself. And my brother-in-law, Craig, Cody's father, was building decks, outside decks. He owned a business. It was called, I think he owned a business or he worked for a guy. The name of the business was Archadeck. And anyways, he was building these decks, and he says, every time we go to build a deck, we have to hire a drill rig to come out and drill the posts, the holes for the posts for the decks. So we were at a farm show, and we happened upon this thing called a Beltec post hole diggers. Now the Beltec post hole digger was down pressure machine. So it had these hydraulic cylinders, and you would go, and it didn't matter what you were digging through. It had tungsten carbide bits, teeth on it that were knock-in. You'd just go and you'd knock a new one in when the other ones wore out, and they took a long time to wear out. You could dig through shale like nothing. You could dig through hard stone of rock. If you came across a flat rock, it took a little bit of time and a bucket of water, but it would drill right through that thing. So we bought this thing. They came out and they demonstrated it, and for $2,500 back in like 1992, we bought this thing. So my brother-in-law was still building the decks, and he decided that he would charge his boss, or bill his boss, and of course there was kickback to the farm for this thing because the Beltec was bought by my dad, and for every hole, it was like $5 a hole. And shipping charges, and we went all over hell with this thing. We had the old 4020 tractor, but anyway, it didn't matter what we put it on. I had it on the 4320, the 4020. I think I even had it on the 4430 for a while. I know I did, because I dug post holes for my sister over in Annandale on a hillside that, oh my God, it probably would have cost them $1 million to get that deck built. But I did it. I took this tractor up a hill, and it was like, it was crazy. And you could adjust it side to side. So anyways, down the road here, maybe 5 miles away, we got a phone call from, what the hell was the name of that damn farm? It doesn't matter. They sold horse supplies down here. God, why can't I remember that? Because I had been in that building, and the building's still there, but the owners of this thing, they were like, hey, we're putting up fence, and we need post holes dug. How much you charge? And I took the call. I was like, yeah, we do $5 a hole, and where are you at? And they told me where they were at. I was like, oh, Windy Springs. No, it wasn't Windy Springs. What was the name of that damn thing? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't know it anyway. So I says, well, okay, I know right where you're at. I'll be down there tomorrow if that's okay. Yeah, no, we'll do it. I says, but you got to mark the holes. You mark the holes, so if there's anything underground there, I don't get in trouble. You're on the hook. And that was how we worded it in the contract. So we go down with the contract. Contract states $5 a hole, minimum of 100 holes, and they mark the spots where the holes are to be made, so on and so forth. We'll come do the job. Okay, they sign the contract. I go down, and every so many feet. I think it was they used 10-foot board fence. So every 10 feet there was a white X, and you put the bit down and you drill the hole. Well, we get going, and I see that there's an AT&T marker across the road, and I said to the guy, I said, "You know where is that? Is that on your property?" He says, "Well, I don't think so." And he says, "I don't think so. There's no markers on this property." I said, "Well, where does it cross?" He's like, "Well, it crosses." He says, "I think it goes up the edge of the farm and then, or up the edge of the road, and then crosses on the other side of the road. It goes under the road, crosses under the road, and then goes out across this field on the other side of the road." I was like, "Okay." I says, "Well, I don't want to hit that thing." He's like, "No, you shouldn't hit it." Okay. Wouldn't you know it, this dude put an X right on top of that line, and I hit it. I didn't know what the hell I had hit, but the post hole digger goes, and it breaks the bolts. It actually, what did it break? It didn't break the bolts. Nor there were shear bolts on the auger bit. If it got sideways or whatever, it would just break those off. Well, that's not what happened. It broke the gearbox, and I picked the head unit up, and the bit is stuck down in the ground. So this was before cell phones. We didn't have cell phones. They just weren't a thing at that time. And so I'm like, well, I got to call home and get my dad, because I don't have a chain. I got to get somebody down here to help me pull this thing out of the ground. And the oil spills out of this thing right down the hole. And so I get down. I tell the guy. He's like, yeah. He says, well, go on in the house. There's you can make a phone call in there, and we'll, they can come rescue you or whatever, get a chain. So I go to make a phone call, and the woman says to me, she said, well, the phone is dead. I don't know what happened. It was working about an hour ago, but now it's not working. I was like, oh, okay. So he says, well, I've got a chain. If you think you can get it out, I've got a chain. I was like, yeah, no, I can get it out with a chain. So he wrapped it around, and I dropped the head rig down over top of it and ripped it out. Didn't think anything of it. Took the head rig, or the auger, threw it up on top, took the chain, wrapped it around, and I drive home. Well, I get home, and I don't know what the heck we were going to call somebody. I don't know. The phones were all dead. Everything was dead. There was no phones anywhere. Like, no phones. It's like, doesn't dawn on me that I just took out AT&T's fiber optic line. Yeah, AT&T's fiber optic line. Well, I didn't mark the holes. Next thing, there's a car coming in the driveway, and because there's no phones anymore, nobody's got telephones. I mean, Kingwood was shut down. Apparently, this even affected New York City, Easton, Camden, Philadelphia, Trenton, and Doylestown. Any town, city you can think of, that fiber optic line was tied in. It was like the central hub of the fiber optic world. Now, if you don't know what fiber optics are, I believe they still use them. They are communications by light. So, and they transmit light, because light travels, 186,000 miles a second. So it's very effective. It travels faster than electricity, so they would send these, it's basically digital lights, open, close, and they go very, very quickly through these fiber optic lines. Now, this fiber optic cable was about that big. I'm not shitting you. It was maybe 6 inches across, 4 to 6 inches across. I didn't know this at that time until later, what exactly was in there, but there was like, I don't know, 15,000 of these little fiber optic gizmos in there, and we cut through all of them. I cut through all of them. Well, the truck comes into the farm and they're like, hey, did you just dig post holes? I was like, yeah, why? What's the problem? Well, you just cut down communications. I mean, literally, probably the FBI would have been there if it happened today. Shortly after that, it came out with, if you hit our line, it's like a $90,000 fine. Call before you dig. Because it just, yeah, we hit that. Twice in my life have I had incidences like that. Both times I was off the hook because I made sure that the person that was getting the holes dug marked those lines. That was my only saving grace. And that the one guy, he went out of business shortly thereafter, and the insurance company for the guy that I was digging for, where I hit that fiber optic line, one was a petroleum pipeline. And I asked the guy before I dug those holes, I was like, that petroleum pipeline is there. Do you know where it is? Yeah, I know exactly where it is. We transited it. Well, he transited it and put a line right on top, and I had drilled, I don't know, right on top of the thing. And those carbide bits were cutting in. That was just another thing. I stopped digging post holes for people after that, because you wouldn't believe how many buried things there are under the ground in New Jersey. It's kind of crazy, but yeah. So anyhow, I find out that they had, because I saw the piece when they took it out. They had to, because the bit that I was using was 16 inches across. 16 inches across, about that big. So I caught it on the side, and it actually, the bits came around and grabbed that cable, and when it did, it started to wrap it before it sheared it off. Because fiber optic is like fiberglass, or yeah, I'd say it's like fiberglass. It's really brittle. You know, you ever see those little things, they used to sell them in like these novelty stores, and you push the button and all these colorful lights would come out of them, and they would shine lights on your ceiling. They looked like like a disco ball, but it was a thing with all these little, that's fiber optics. So they cut the section out that I had damaged, they dug it back, and then they put in a splice. And I was like, well, geez, how did they do that? They have a splicing machine that would splice all that stuff back together. It took like 3 days to get it completely done with like 15,000 of these little wires in there. They're not wires, but they were just glass. It looked like fiberglass. So they cut the section out, and I'm not kidding you. It was tightly wound or packed. It was a piece like this, tightly packed in this casing of thick plastic casing like that. And the poor bastard that had to put that all back together again, I hope he got paid a lot of money. But yeah, so that was pretty much the end of our post-hole digging career after that one, because we had hit the pipeline first. That was another not our fault, because I was just following with the post guys. You know, if you set the markers, you take responsibility for anything that happens therefore after that. But since the call before you dig, that did away with that. So it doesn't matter who marks it. It's the guy that actually dug the hole's fault. If you're actively digging, and in all honesty, they even, before you moldboard plow, they want you to call before you actually plow, which is bullshit. But they can mark. Well, if that pipe or that wire is that close to the surface, I mean, what do we plow? 6-8 inches? You know, sometimes you go 9 chisel plowing 8-9 inches, you know, something like that. If that pipe or that line is that close to the top, serves them right. Them some bitches ought to be 6 feet deep. But if you're 6 feet deep, then you really don't have to worry about hitting anything, because you're not going to dig a post hole 6 feet deep, 3 feet. You're not going to plow that deep. You're not going to do anything that deep, really, unless you're building a basement. So anyway, yeah, so that was the story with that. It took about 3 days to get that all straightened out, and of course, it cost us $300 or $400 to fix the post hole digger. And the guy that I was digging the holes for didn't want to pay us for what we had done. I had already dug like 50 holes, and he needed like 200. It was a pretty good payday, but we had already dug like 50 holes before we hit that thing. He's like, I'm not paying you. Look at all the trouble you caused. Look at this. Look at that. It's like, no, you caused the trouble. You didn't know where the damn hole was. You're going to pay us. Finally, I mean, after a while, it took us a little while to get paid, but we did end up getting paid. And God, I cannot remember the name of that damn horse facility. It was not a horse facility. It was a, well, they sold saddlery and stuff for horses, but whatever. God, what the heck is the name of that thing? My sisters used to go down there all the time. It was the most expensive place you could go. But it was a 2 or 3 story block building that was like 200 feet long, and it was just packed with buckets, bridles, harness, anything you could think of in there. Saddles, English, Western, hats. You named it, it was in there. And yeah, and now it's all gone. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you didn't, well, I'm sorry. It's a rainy day. My bin guys, as far as I know, are not there. I don't think they're going to show up. And I'm going to go see if I can think about this. I'm going to see if I can get a time-lapse video of this. I got a GoPro that I think I can set to time-lapse and catch that. But anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. And, later on, they tore that fiber optic line out. Like 5 years later, tore it out and put a new one, bigger one in, and they're still using fiber optics today. Thanks for watching. Please hit please comment, please rate it with a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do that. Thank you. And it won't shut off.